Very interesting article out of Los Angeles. Gizmodo wrote about this, and it comes to do with surveillance, privacy, and law enforcement. And we've talked about this a little bit before. And according to the LA Police Department and the LA Sheriff's Department, your car is part of a vast criminal investigation if you are simply driving in the Los Angeles area. This came up because of a controversy involving some briefs filed in the EFF, that's the Electronic Freedom Foundation or Electronic Freedom Frontier, and the ACLU of Southern California's Public Records Act lawsuit, where they are looking for a lot of automatic license plate reader data. And they've argued that all license plate data is investigatory, is the point of view of the Los Angeles law enforcement departments. And the fact that it's not associated with any specific crime or suspicion of a crime doesn't matter. This is ridiculous. This means if you're just driving through, the license plate capture data, which, remember, can point out what your route has been. It can point out where you've been within the city and when and with what frequency you travel from here to there. That is okay to be kept by these law enforcement agencies indefinitely and not provided to the public based on record searches, because it's part of an investigation in the sense that it is investigatory by its very nature. This is obviously ridiculous. This goes completely counter to the criminal justice system, where we assume law enforcement doesn't conduct so-called investigations unless there is something to indicate or suggest criminal activity. This could be called probable cause in many cases. In fact, the Fourth Amendment was added to the Constitution exactly to prevent law enforcement from conducting these mass suspicionless investigations, to use their term, under general warrants that don't target anybody specifically, no location specifically, no actions or no people specifically. And that's exactly how these license plate readers work. And it's amazing that this is yet another instance of this, Lewis.
Right. I mean, but how different is this from, let's say, a police officer in the small town we come from pulling up to a parking lot and just slowly driving through and running all the plates? I mean, that happens everywhere all the time. So is this that different?
Well, it's different in the sense that the police officer is saying it's manually being done, even though technically, yes, the officer has no specific reason to run all of those plates. The officer is running the plates. And again, if you're simply running plates that are sitting there as an individual police officer, that to me is very different than a record that includes, remember, through the metadata, the travels and locations of individuals who are not suspected of any crime at all, period, and they are being collected in bulk by these machines. I think it is different. And this is the same issue that we have with the phone records, right? We hear, well, it's just metadata. It's just a list of who called who. It doesn't really tell us anything. And as we saw, you can identify easily, like off the bat, 30 to 40% of people based on phone numbers just by putting the phone number into Google, okay? And then by doing slightly more information and investing a little more time, you can get up to about 70% identification. So to me, the idea that this is just bulk data, not connecting to people specifically, it doesn't fly. And as the ACLU and EFF are arguing, this is just a violation of how our justice system is designed.
What I find interesting about this is the financial aspect of it. I mean, when I stand back and look at this, I think here are a bunch of law enforcement agencies that have new toys to play with. There's some company that is making tens of millions, if not more, of dollars off of this deal.
Yeah.
And what is it really achieving? Probably not much.
This is part of, I wouldn't call this part of the there's nothing too militaristic about the license plate readers, but when we talk about the militarization of police and law enforcement, a lot of it has to do with the same types of business deals that we look at in the military industrial complex. It's a very similar thing, and Lewis is completely right, and it extends to our airports. Remember the porno scanners that a lot of airports still have? That was a huge financial explosion for the company which Michael Chertoff had actually ties to and profited from. The money trail is absolutely huge here, and it's hard to separate it because we can have simply legal and moral arguments, but we're forgetting that those don't matter ultimately when there are such significant financial interests at play, are they?
Right. It's hard to stop these big deals from going down. I mean, there's lobbying happening all over the place for